My name is Richard, and for almost 4 years I've been living and working in Crestview, a small town located in the northwestern part of Florida. Today, I want to tell you a strange story that happened to me about 3 months ago while I was driving home from a work trip. I've always enjoyed driving at night, so I decided to leave in the evening. It was around 11 p.m., and I was driving along a deserted road about 60 miles from home. The only source of light was my car's headlights. The previous workdays had been very intense, and I was starting to feel a bit of accumulated fatigue. My eyes were closing due to tiredness when suddenly, from the rearview mirror, I began to notice something strange. A car, a black station wagon, appeared out of nowhere. I was sure I was alone on that road. Shortly after, it started flashing its headlights at me and then overtook me. I thought it was just someone who had had a bit too much to drink. After 10 minutes, I saw the same car moving slowly in the right lane of the road. As soon as I passed it, it began to accelerate, and I found it behind me again. It started to scare me. The car stayed behind me for about 30 miles, and I kept wondering why it was following me and what it wanted from me. I just couldn't understand. I began to think that the only solution was to stop at a gas station or any other place where there were other people. After a few minutes, finally I saw a gas station. As soon as I entered the area, I parked near the entrance of a small cafe. As expected, that car also entered the service area. Seeking refuge, I went inside and started walking through the shelves, looking through the windows into the parking lot to see if that car was still there. Inside the cafe, there was only a woman browsing for something to buy. Meanwhile, I decided to grab a drink from the fridge to try to relax a bit and ease the tension. I started drinking it behind the shelves so that whoever was in that car couldn't see me through the windows. Shortly after, I saw a light on the floor. It was the headlights of that car moving away from the area. I cautiously approached one of the windows, trying to see if they were still there, but fortunately, it seemed they had left. I breathed a sigh of relief. I waited for a few minutes and then left the cafe, rushing towards my car. Once inside, I started the engine and left the place quickly. The tension had decreased, but not entirely. I was afraid that at any moment, that car could reappear. After about 30 minutes, I finally arrived home. I was exhausted. As soon as I entered the house without letting my daughter hear to avoid scaring her, I told my wife about what happened, and she seemed incredulous. After that evening, we never spoke about it again. That car had disappeared into thin air until 2 days later, from the window of my apartment, I saw it parked downstairs. There was no one inside, but I had the feeling that someone from who knows where was watching me. For 3 consecutive nights, I continued to see that car parked near my house. It appeared promptly at 2 a.m. and left at 6 a.m., just before I left for work. At that point, I decided it was time to do something. The situation was becoming too dangerous for me and my family. I went to the police to report the situation. I told them everything. They listened carefully and noted all the details. After about a week, the police contacted me, saying they had conducted some checks, but couldn't find information about the ownership of that car. They told me that as soon as they knew more, they would contact me. That situation became my worst nightmare. While waiting for updates from the police, I decided to increase my personal security. I installed some surveillance cameras to have better control over the situation. Fortunately, I haven't seen that car anymore. As the days passed, my life and that of my family returned to normal, although the fear of finding that car parked nearby my house is still strong. About a year ago, I started working at a restaurant. Every night after my shift, I would take the usual road that led me home. On that road, there were many whispers of unsettling events that had happened to many drivers, like me, who regularly traveled it. It was the night of January 4th, 2017, a night like many others. I was in my car heading home and stopped at an intersection, waiting for the traffic light to turn green. I remained stopped at that traffic light for about 1 minute when suddenly, to my right, On the side of the road, I saw two men staring at me intently. I couldn't see their faces because it was very dark. I began to feel uneasy. I hoped that the traffic light would turn green as soon as possible, so I could drive away. After a few seconds, the light turned green. I pressed the accelerator to get away from there as quickly as possible. The next evening, I went back to work, and after finishing my shift, I found myself retracing the same road as the previous night. As soon as I reached that intersection, I saw that the traffic light was red, so I stopped. My heart started pounding. I was afraid of reliving the same experience as the night before. After a few seconds, I saw men staring at me again. This time there were 3 of them. Although I couldn't see them well due to the poor lighting, it seemed that the 2 guys from the previous night were not there, and in their place were 3 other people. I remember eagerly waiting for the traffic light to turn green, and as soon as I saw it, I quickly drove away, just like the night before. The next day, I had the night shift again, although I would finish about an hour earlier than usual. When I left the restaurant, got into my car, and started driving, to avoid reliving the same situation as the previous 2 nights, I decided to take another route home. The only thing I wanted was to avoid that intersection. After about half an hour, I arrived home without any problems. I felt relieved. After a few days at work, I told my colleague about what happened. After recounting everything, he gave a slight smile and said, "What did you expect? Don't you know that road belongs to them?" I didn't immediately understand what he meant. I asked him to explain it better. He began to tell me that over the years, many accidents had occurred on that road, and about 2 years earlier there was a car accident that crashed into a truck right at that intersection. In the car were 5 guys, and all 5 lost their lives. Since then, many people traveling that road and passing through that intersection tell of experiencing the same episode I went through. It's as if their presence has remained there in that intersection. After learning about the unsettling history of that intersection, I decided to avoid that road at all costs. However, I don't deny that curiosity is still strong today. Surely one day I will travel that road again, maybe during the day. I used to work at Anthony's specialized industrial supply company, the father of a friend of mine. I was 23 years old, and this job was perfect for me because it allowed me to pay for my university studies and also indulge in some trips, which have always been my greatest passion. During peak work periods, I often found myself starting the day early, working from the early hours of the morning. Fortunately, this rarely happened, or else I wouldn't have been able to manage my university studies. One day, I had to go to work at 5:09 a.m. That morning, I woke up earlier than usual, so I decided to go to the company earlier than planned, around 3:30 a.m., to get ahead with the work. After a few minutes, I heard a noise outside the entrance gate. Who could it be at this hour? I thought. Initially, I thought it might be suppliers delivering materials for the warehouse. I did some checks and noticed that we had no notice of arrivals so early. Intrigued but also a bit uneasy, without being noticed, I approached the gate to better understand the situation. I noticed that outside, there were 2 vans from which 4 individuals descended. From a distance, they seemed to have no company insignia. The situation immediately struck me as strange. I understood that they were trying to organize something shady. I decided to call Anthony immediately to inform him of what was happening, and fortunately, despite my early arrival, he was already awake at that hour. He told me to inform security right away, and that he would be there in a maximum of 15 minutes. Shortly after, both Anthony and security arrived at the scene. The 4 individuals, realizing they were about to be surrounded, desperately tried to escape. In panic, they quickly got into their vans and, in a desperate attempt to evade capture, rammed into the security van and Anthony's car. The impact was very violent. Fortunately, the incident ended with the capture of the 4 individuals, who turned out to be employees of the company. Soon after, the police arrived at the scene, arrested the 4 individuals, and took them to the station. As the investigations progressed, details of their plan emerged. They intended to steal industrial supplies worth an estimated $30,000. Even today, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gone to work early that day. Certainly, Anthony would have suffered a significant financial loss. That day remained in everyone's memory as a lesson about trust and the need to implement additional security measures. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found the content interesting. If so, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel to stay updated on upcoming content. Greetings, and see you in the next video.